West Indies Cricket, Caribbean Cricket Podcast. West Indies Cricket, Caribbean Cricket Podcast.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. I'm one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, Machel St. Patrick Hewitt, and back in the hot seat with me is none other than Father Santokie. Santokie, how you doing?
Yeah, Mash, pleasure to be back. You know, it's Christmas Eve as of recording, a time, you know, when people spend it with, you know, their family, friends, close ones, put the phones down, spend that quality time together. However, here at the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, we've jumped in the studio to talk on some West Indies cricket. You know, we're always here by the fans, for the fans. We're always here ready to drop content, and Christmas Eve is no different. And so, Mash, it's a big episode because, you know, it's a squad announcement, test squad announcement, no less. And, you know, that always gets divisive debates going among the Caribbean community. So we're here to look at, you know, the recently announced squad to Pakistan. So I'll just jump in straight away and go with the squad that was announced. So 2 test matches from January the 16th in Lahore and Multan, I believe. West Indies have announced a 15-man squad to travel to Pakistan. So Craig Brathwaite captains, Joshua De Silva retains his place as vice-captain. Then we have Alec Afanase, Casey Carty, Justin Greaves, Kavem Hodge, Tevin Imlak, Amir Jangu, maiden call-up for West Indies Test cricket. We saw him in the ODI setup. He's back in Test colours. Mikhail Louis, Gudakesh Moti returns. Anderson Phillip, Kamar Roach, Kevin Sinclair, Jaden Seals, and Jamal Warrican. So Moti and Jangu have come in. The 2 players who are missing out are Shamar Joseph, who Cricket West Indies have stated is recovering from an injury, so he'll be missing that, and Azari Joseph, who will be playing in the IL T20 tournament in the UAE. So he's taken up franchise commitments, so he will be missing there. So not massive wholesale changes to this, which is, remember, Andre Coley's last assignment as Test head coach before Darren Sammy takes over from the helm. Not massive changes, but, you know, two significant changes in and out. So, Mash, first things first, let's get into it. What are you expected? Obviously, we're coming off a down bad draw against Bangladesh. Now we travel away to Pakistan. First time any of these players would have played Test cricket in Pakistan. West Indies haven't played in 18 years or something, I believe. So, what are you hoping to see from this Test series? How bad could it be out there?
2-0 defeat is, I think, people are going to say, "Oh, you two started negative as usual." It's nothing to do with negativity. Absolutely nothing to do with negativity, right? I think the average West Indian fan would expect us to lose 2-0 in Pakistan. And let's not forget, before people say, "Oh, but Bangladesh beat Pakistan in Pakistan," hear that. Since then, Pakistan have beaten England in Pakistan. And if I'm not mistaken, Santokie, what effectively happened in that England series is that Pakistan went back to tried and trusted basics and said, let's try and utilize spin bowling. Let's prepare wickets that will aid our spin bowling. And we believe in Pakistan's sense that we will be able to out-bowl England if those are the conditions that are prepared. Now, England's harem-scarum Bazball cricket notwithstanding, the point is Pakistan got the job done and in the end won quite comprehensively. So the reason why I say 2-0, Santokie, is fundamentally, if Pakistan put up similar wickets to what they put up against England, we will lose. And I don't see that as a negative. I just see that as pure facts. I mean, the flip side to it is that some fans will say, "Oh, but Mash, West Indies went to Australia this time last year or a year ago and upset the apple cart and got a win at the Gabba, and that's how we started 2024. So what's to say we won't start 2025 with a shock win in Pakistan?" I'm not saying it's not possible, Santokie, but realistic West Indies fans would be shocked if the result is anything other than 2-0.
Yeah, I think if we were playing Pakistan about 6 months ago, I'd be slightly, I mean, I wouldn't be optimistic, but I'd think, okay, West Indies might be able to do something, because since Pakistan started playing Test cricket again in Pakistan 2021, I think, essentially their pitches had followed the same sort of form, as in they were roads for batters. Teams were hitting big scores, and then on the last day you were getting some turns. So we saw Australia get a win there. England won 3-0 2022, but then I think Bangladesh winning against them, and then England winning the first test was the last straw. They were like, hold on a minute, we're Pakistan, the spin king. So I think it was Sajid Khan and Noman Ali. They brought them in, the two spinners. They dropped Shaheen Afridi and Naseem Shah, they're two pace bowlers. And I think one of the tests was even at Multan against England, which they won, which is where West Indies are going to go. And they basically essentially spun England out. And you'd imagine, because that heralded a win for them, a rare series win for them in Pakistan, they're going to continue the same against West Indies, which is bad news for West Indies, because you know how we struggle against spin, no less, in Pakistan as well. I'm not sure if we're even playing a warm-up game, Mash.
We've got a warm-up game. We've got a warm-up game. We got, when is it again? We've got a warm-up game. In fact, it's not even, I can't even find the fixtures now, but we definitely have a warm-up game before the two tests start.
Okay, so at least we're definitely doing a warm-up game, so that's good to get some practice in. But I just think it's going to be very, very tough for Pakistan if they play in the same spirit. For all we know, they could, in Lahore, they could have a pacey pitch and bring back Shaheen Afridi or come with Naseem Shah again. But either way, Mash, even if it's a spin-heavy pitch or they're going with pace, Pakistan have enough quality for them to be a massive favourites against West Indies. Put it this way, if West Indies were to get a win in Pakistan, it would be up there with almost a miracle at the Gabba, basically.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I think that's also got to be seen in the context of where our test side is at. Machel Lewis is still struggling to find himself. Alec Athanaze is struggling to... I know he got 90-odd and 40-odd in the first test against Bangladesh, but he's still struggling to find himself. Hodge is still struggling to find himself. Who else? Carty's just there. And the fundamentals are, Santokie, everyone has to remember that our top six is so, apart from Craig Brathwaite, is so inexperienced that they're all going to Pakistan for the first time. Like it's unrealistic. It's just unrealistic to expect that if it is trial by spin, it's unrealistic to expect that a top six, which has Mikael Louis, Casey Carty, Alec Athanaze, Kavem Hodge, and Justin Graves, are going to be able... We're certainly not winning the series, put it that way. I want to believe that there's like a 5% chance we can... 5% chance that we win one of the test matches. But like it's just on paper... It'll be as tough as it gets for these sets of players. But Santokie, before we even go any further on it, though, let's talk about Andre Coley, because is he a bit of a lame duck here? Because it's been announced 6 months ahead of time that Coley's no longer going to be test coach, because the reality is we don't have another test assignment until Australia at the start of the next World Test Championship cycle. So we have this basically this takes us to the end of January, right? Then we have no test cricket. So Coley basically after January goes back into they've officially said now that he goes back into like the developmental pathways for the duration of his contract with Cricket West Indies. So if you're Andre Coley, it's kind of like in football when you're a caretaker manager and you know that a new guy's coming in. Right? What do you do, like a Ruud van Nistelrooy for Manchester United, where it's like, boy, let me try and get a historic win here because this guarantees me a next job if I can pull off something out of the blue, and maybe I can go get a head coach job at another nation or something like that? Or is it effectively saying to Coley and all the players, backroom staff, etc., well, boy, if you lose, you lose because a new man's coming in anyways? Like, what does that create?
Yeah, I think it's the latter option. I think it's all right. Well, you know, a new man's coming in. Let's just get through this series in Pakistan. I think Coley, in his head, will probably be thinking, I'd love to, get an upset here just to prove everyone wrong, the hierarchy that didn't give me the contract extension. But his hands are tied, Mash, because there's only so much you can do with this test squad anyway. So, and we've only seen 2 changes as well. So generally, they're going to play to the form. It's the same players he had throughout the majority of his stint. Yeah, it is unusual because there's such a prolonged build-up to Sammy taking over. As you said, 6 months. I'm sure Coley's come out in the media. I think it was Jamaica Observer, wasn't it? And said sort of he's disappointed by what happened. But to be fair, Mash, we did say on the Bangladesh preview pod, if we didn't get a 2-0 win and there wasn't rain or anything, Coley's job would be under scrutiny if Bangladesh were to pick up a win. And that's what we saw happen. I think the Bangladesh probably swung it in favour of them making a decision to get rid of Coley. On that note, just obviously with Sammy coming in, I did think it was slightly strange how the press conference, Sammy's announcement, it was almost as if the test head coach job was given as an afterthought to Sammy. The story given by Miles Bascom was they had negotiations for an extension to Sammy's white ball contract, which was ending in June. And then it was during these negotiations, it came up that they would add the test role to it, which is strange because they didn't go through the usual protocol of a vacancy being announced, candidates being interviewed. It just felt, we're talking to Sammy, Sammy's bringing good vibes. Let's just add this onto him. So the whole thing seems very strange and not. I mean, it probably was a strategic plan, but it just felt from the optics given in that press conference that it wasn't. It was sort of like panic button was hit. We're not going to extend Coley and Sammy's right here. Let's just give Sammy a chance. So the whole thing is slightly strange. You do feel bad for Andre Coley because he's someone who's been deep in West Indies cricket for years now, working with the youths. He'll be going back to that developmental role. And realistically, Mash, you'd imagine he won't get an opportunity again to be senior head coach again, because usually how these things work, if you get given the opportunity once, and you're seen as someone who works better with youth development, you're usually kept in that box. So it's a shame for him, but as I said, the Bangladesh result kind of forced Cricket West Indies' hand, you'd imagine.
I hear that. But so there's two things I want to raise to you here. Number one, if Sammy, well, not Sammy, he's taken over. We know he's taken over. And I know his contract doesn't start until obviously June or April, or whatever it is they've said for the red ball position. But if you're Darren Sammy, wouldn't you want to be up close and personal to the test team? I know his contract doesn't start until later on in the year, but I don't know, like, it's not like it's an overseas guy coming in. So it's not like it's like, you've got a contract that you've got to see out. So that's why he's not available. Like there's some things in this that just don't make a bit of sense to me, Santokie. I'd be saying, you know what, Sammy, fly to Pakistan. You're already like a diplomat he's pretty much the leader of Pakistan, Darren Sammy. He's a diplomat out there, right? So I don't see why he wouldn't then just fly over and say, I'm not here to interfere, but I just want to be up close and just watch these men. Because big questions are going to be asked, Santokie. If we take the 2-0 L going into Sammy's first assignment, which will be Australia, enough man will be saying, so hold on, is Sammy going to pick the same squad? Like there's and that's my second thing I want to get at, Santokie. Some people, who's under pressure? Or because some of these players have only really just got in the side, is no one under pressure? And you listened to the press conference that they did or had in St. Vincent, Cricket West Indies. And I think Sammy made some point, you can clarify for me, but I think Sammy made some point about there's no such thing as white ball players and red ball players. It's just West Indian players. So everyone's going to take from that, Santokie, that, well, Sammy's going to be able to convince at least one man from the so-called white ball sides to come play Test cricket. So I think people are going to naturally assume, Santokie, that come Australia in the summer, new people are coming in. But who's on the threat?
Yeah, I think we could see a period of a reset here, because the Test side is down bad. We've won 2 matches so far in the World Test Championship, and one of those was the miracle at the Gabba. I think the Test side is so down bad. Sammy has essentially been given a license to press the red button and say, you know what, we can go for anyone, regardless whether they're boxers or white ball player or red ball player. We're just picking them. They're West Indian. We'll pick them for the Test side. You're looking at obvious candidates, those that have worked with him in white ball setups. Shafane Rutherford springs to mind straight away. He's someone who's rejuvenated his career in 50 over cricket. He'd be a name that springs to mind. Brandon King, Shea Hope as well. You'd imagine realistically, they're 3 names he'll be trying to call out and get into the red ball side. I still think someone like a Nicholas Pooran is unrealistic at this point in time. I don't think as much magic as Sammy can work, I don't think he's getting Pooran to put on the whites just yet. So, but I do think we'll see changes, and I think it's because West Indies have nothing to lose, and I think the fact that Bascom and Shallow have gone for Sammy, they'll be expecting that as well, surely, because they've hired the white ball coach. So that overlap, surely they're expecting Sammy to be able. They've seen what he's done in the white ball side, and convincing someone like a Shafane Rutherford, even Andre Russell, who's not going to play Test cricket, but convincing him to kind of come back for the T20 side, reintegrating him into that side. His ability to do that is probably what they're looking at in Test cricket, and it's very pertinent if we look at when Desmond Haynes era, the lack of communication and sort of discord between players and the board and selectors. Sammy's probably seen as a man that can, bridge that gap again in Test cricket and bring in those players. So I'm expecting changes. That middle order you talked about it a few minutes ago. From Machel, Louis downwards, Afanase, Hodge, Casey Carty. I don't think anyone's particularly guaranteed of their spot. Particularly someone like Casey Carty, he's living on the edge at the moment. So I think that there will be, if there aren't performances in Pakistan, we will see some changes. And a lot of West Indies fans, including ourselves, have been calling for more integration of white ball players into red ball cricket. So it could be a positive for Darren Sammy to kind of come in and chase it. But as well, I just think it's a massive workload for Sammy to add that to him. I think we've essentially followed what England have done with Brendan McCullum, where they've given him, he was the Test cricket head coach, and they've given him the white ball head coach role now. Just to think, if one person's bringing good vibes, he can hopefully unite the whole of the cricket. So it's weird because Phil Simmons' job was split up because it was seen as too pressurized, all the traveling commitments and everything. And we've only gone 2 years now as a split role before reverting back to form. So it'd be interesting to see how Darren Sammy copes with it. But hopefully for the good of West Indies cricket, he can rejuvenate our Test side, because we definitely need it at the moment, Mash.
So check this out though, Santokie, because here's something I don't understand, right? Or here's something that I wanna put to you here. It's a weird analogy here because people are going to listen to what I'm about to say and be like, this man bringing up. Okay, so in 2021, Santokie. So for those people who don't know, who are listening to this, I support Bromley Football Club. I'm having to go back to make a long-winded analogy. In 2021, Bromley sacked their manager, right? At the time that he was sacked, Santokie, Bromley were in 7th place in the National League. And I made a point of saying to lots of people before the new manager came in, who from me telling you, well, you just know that we've had unprecedented success in the last 3 years. But before the new guy came in, I made a point to all Bromley fans at the time, and I said, the precedent has been set. If we're prepared to sack somebody who's in 7th at the time of the sacking, the new man can't finish lower than 7th, because that's set a precedent for me. So hear me now, Santokie. Andre Coley has been sacked after winning a historic Test match in Australia. 29 years, we ain't done that. Granted, we then drew with Bangladesh and obviously lost to England 3-0, lost 1-0 at home South Africa, but he won a Test match in Australia, right? To me, Santokie, and I want to know if I'm being unrealistic, to me, that now sets a metric. Because if we're saying that winning a historic Test match in Australia isn't enough to keep you in the job, and we know why he would have been moved on, Sammy's first 10 Test matches are as follows, Santokie. First 8 Test matches are as follows. 3 at home versus Australia, 2 away versus India, 3 away versus New Zealand. If Sammy ends 2025, Santokie, 0-8, we have to sack him, yeah?
Hey, Phil Simmons, what are you saying? What are you doing?
No, but obviously we won't. But do you see my point though? In that we've set a metric now of what's not good enough. So it can't now be. Oh no, it's all right to go 0-8 because it just is what it is. Like,
but the thing is, you say yeah, like obviously we won't, but technically there's a good all right, free test against Australia. You'd imagine at home that's our best chance of getting a win. But even that's going to be a strong Australia side. India's going to be a 2-0. Like, we're not going away.
That's a 2-0 L. Let's not even discuss that.
New Zealand is hard to call, but they're still a strong side and in away conditions. So whilst I'm hoping, law of averages, generally we always manage to get 1 or 2 surprise wins somewhere. Whilst I'm hoping that's the case, very realistic that we get pumped 8-0 in that period. And like you said, and then we've got Sammy dejected, demoralised after that 8-0 battering. Got to take us to the World Cup, T20 World Cup.
This is no joke, It's actually no joke. This is the reason I'm surprised he took the job. Like, this
is the flip side, because there's an argument to say, all right, Sammy can bring good vibes into the Test arena, but then there's a counter argument that can say we're so down bad in Test cricket, it might bring the man down and it might affect our white ball.
Why do you think he took it?
Yeah, I'm surprised.
That's the one thing we haven't answered. Why do you think he took it? Because there's actually no need for him to take it. Why do you think he?
I think, you know what? I think it essentially boils down to Sammy's a proud West Indian. He's of the generation, where Test cricket is seen as the pinnacle. It's where you form a legacy. No doubt he would have seen what happened at the Gabba and all that kind of thing. And probably the romantic in him probably thought, you know what, if I can do something with this Test side, it will cement my legacy more so than any sort of white ball achievements, unless I'm winning a World Cup. So I just think, it's that challenge, because bear in mind, as a white ball coach, unless there's a World Cup, if you think this past year since the T20 World Cup, you're just playing bilaterals after bilaterals. I'm sure for him, he'll want something of a bit more substance. And I think it's just the challenge of him doing it. But as you said, Mash, it's a big risk. More traveling, more so. If you look at that, those test commitments, particularly 2 away in India, 2 in New Zealand, then we go to a World Cup in India. Not long after that, he's got big travel commitments. A lot more planning now, because you've got a plan for the Test side. It's not linked to the white ball side in that sense strategically. So he's taken on an extra workload burden. But I think with Sammy, someone who take that gamble. He's young enough where I think he can give it a go, and then still come out of it, even if it fails, and just move into being an exclusive white ball coach again. So I think he's seen it as a gamble, something to cement his legacy. Because don't forget, he was the Test captain as well for a long period.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Kind of been involved in that setup. So it is what it is. Good luck to him. But I just think it's a very, very challenging role. And I'm just surprised the head coach vacancy Test, they at least didn't interview other candidates or have some sort of thought. It was just sort of some sort of field. It was just given to Sammy. But that, I guess, highlights, whilst there could be question marks over the process in that, it also speaks to Cricket West Indies having a lot of confidence in Sammy's ability as a leader and coach.
So let's just talk about the players. I've only got 2 or 3 talking points for either players. Talking point number 1 for me is this, Santokie. I'm just going to read something to you. I want your views on it. It says here, a standout performance. This was about Amir Jangu, but it's sorry, start again. It says here, also returning to the squad is Gudakesh Multi, who was unavailable for the recent drawn series against Bangladesh. Now, I was told Multi was dropped because he wasn't needed, right? Do you remember when we did that episode about was Multi dropped or whatever? Do you think this is Cricket West Indies now admitting, oh yeah, but he was playing a Global Super League? Because why have they used the word who was unavailable? Because to say he was unavailable suggests he made himself unavailable. Because why else was he unavailable? But we were told that Multi was left out because they've chosen Warwican, and if they're going to pick a spinner against Bangladesh at home, Warwican's the incumbent, and that's the one they want to go for. So Multi's out on form. So how was he unavailable now for Bangladesh and Santokie?
Yeah, so it's obviously an unintentional slip there in that press release, because, like you said, Mash, we were messaged by a senior person at Cricket West Indies to say it was based on form. There wasn't any sort of clashes. Obviously, me and you had analysed it and looked at common sense and been thinking, hold on, the Guyana Super League is on. There's been a lot of financial investment in it. Moti's a figurehead in Guyana. He's going to play that. So we came to the conclusion that Moti had obviously been given preferential treatment, either been told to play in the Super League or chosen to play in the Super League. The finances were good for it, and therefore not playing in West Indies Test Series. However, it was clarified to us by Cricket West Indies that the decision was purely based on form. Statistics showing that Warwican was a better performer, and that's why Warwican was picked. So for this press release to say he was unavailable, as you rightly say, Mash, gives the implication that he made himself unavailable for that Test series, and now he's back again, and they picked him. So very strange wording. I'm sure, as with anything, a lot of things with Cricket West Indies, we won't get any clarification on it. But I think that sort of reveals that there was more to it than him just being dropped on form, because he was the premier spinner. It would have been strange to just drop him based on form in one series against South Africa for Jamal Warwican, who themselves they've not really trusted. He's kind of been in and out of the side anyway. So a strange one, but I think it's good to see Moti in that Pakistan squad. I think if anyone's going to be able to cause damage, if the pitches are spin friendly, I'd back Moti over Warwican. So I mean, both of them could very well play depending on the pitch. 2 frontline spinners. Yeah, good to see Moti back in the side. And Amir Jangu, we said it after the Bangladesh series on the pod. We've seen it with Karti and Afanase. once players make it into the white ball setup, 50 over, do well, they tend to get called up for the test side at the moment and build on that momentum. Justin Greaves as well. So Django, you know, it's not no surprise to see him in the squad. We wait to see whether he makes that 11 because interestingly, Mash, obviously, De Silva's named as vice captains. I don't think his place is under threat. No matter, we still get a lot of comments about his place from fans who aren't happy with him in the side. But Tevin Imlac's still in there as well. So you kind of you've got a depth of, you know, wicketkeeper batsmen in the side. So if we look at kind of the 11 we think is going to play that first test against Pakistan, I think we can agree. Obviously, Brathwaite, Machel, Louis will open. There's no real alternative options. The first big question mark, Mash, Karti, Hodge, Afanase. Do you think they will make up the middle order in Pakistan? Or do
I think everyone's getting that same test. The top 6 against Bangladesh, they're going to get that first test. It would have to be an injury for me to understand why they. I'm not saying I want them all there, but the point is they are going to be there. You would assume. So what's that? Brathwaite, Louis, Karti, Afanase, Hodge, Graves. That's your 6, right? The only question mark they've got to ask themselves is how. So I don't see a spot for Amir Django yet. I don't see a spot for Tevin Imlac yet. Obviously, there'll be loads of people in the comments saying they should be in instead of Josh De Silva. Josh is vice captain. You wouldn't have bothered naming him vice captain if you're not planning to play him, I would assume, right? Certainly in the first test anyways. Remember, there is a warm-up game. So for all we know, if Django or Imlac score big, well, maybe that might change things, right? So you have Josh at 7. And then I think I just think it's got to be 2 spinners, 2 seamers, won't it? So it'll probably be Multi, Warrican, and then Roach and Seals, with Graves being the all-rounder at 6. Because the only other way you can construct that side is if Kevin Sinclair gets in to give you a 3rd spinning option. But they'll just ask Kavem Hodge or Alec Afanase or even Craig to be the 3rd spinner if they had to. So I think the way I see it, Santokie, is the first test is the top 6 will get it again because they're just the top 6. But if in that first test we're humbled, I would not be surprised if there's changes made to the construction of the batting by the second test.
Yeah, I think, especially with Graves scoring that century against Bangladesh, I don't think his place is under threat. Usually there'd be a temptation to go with the all-rounder spinner instead of the all-round pacer. But I think you're right. I think Graves will play, De Silva will play. And yeah, based on the options, you'd imagine it would be Seals and Roach for the first test, maybe bringing Anderson Phillip for the second test, depending on how things go. And then 2 frontline spinners, Warwick and Moti. I'm with you. I'm leaning more towards it being the same 11. However, I can also, I'd say it's 60-40. I'd say 60% chance it's going to be the same, but still 40% of me thinks Django might come in for Karti. I know they'll go for that swap.
Do you reckon?
For the batting. So I just think Django's in form. Coley will know him well because he's played for CCC. You know, he's played for Leeward Islands, Trinidad. He's known around the region. He's in form. He can slot in that middle order. So I still think it's likely Karti will play, but I think it's closer than we suspect. I think Django might come in 40%. I'm saying 60-40. So I think I can very much put it this way: if Django's in that 11, I wouldn't be completely shocked. Because I think they've called him up for a reason based on that momentum. I think Imlac is still there as backup still. I don't think he's kind of jumped over Django just because of what Django's done in ODI cricket. So I'm still leaning more towards it being the same batting lineup, but at the same time, Django, you know, you watch out, he could be making his debut in that first.
No, do you know what? I see your point. But actually, it can't be Karti because I was about to say to you, Santokie, Django scored a century on debut. You pick a man who's on form, but didn't Karti score 90 odd in that same test match as well? So, So, don't get me wrong, Django's probably knocking on the door, but I just don't, in terms of configuration of the side. If I was Josh, though, I'd be looking to make some runs in Pakistan because if you're right, Santokie, and a red ball reset comes by the time Australia come around in the summer, certain man might not be in the squad if they don't make runs in Pakistan.
Yeah,
I could see a situation by the time Sammy turns up on the scene where if we flop in Pakistan, I could see Sammy getting rid of 3 all in one go and saying, you know what, you've had long enough rope now. I'm bringing in my own players. Do you see where I'm coming from? So we shall see. Listen, last thing before we wrap this then, Santokie. Alzari Joseph, you mentioned him at the top. has other engagements. We believe they haven't specified, but we believe it must be the ILT20. I've got no problem with him being there. Someone messaged earlier on today saying, outrageous. How have West Indies issued him a no objection certificate to go play ILT20? And the thing that was going through my head was, Alzari don't even make my side anyway. So he can go. Like, I've got no issue with it whatsoever. If it was at home and we needed to play 3 or 4 pacers, well, that's different. But this is in Pakistan, where the chances are we're not playing more than 2 pacers and Justin Graves. So in my head, I was like, yeah, I don't like let Alzari go eat a food and make some money in a T20 tournament because he's not a guaranteed pick anymore. Or is that the wrong way to look at it?
Yeah, I think you're completely right. I think in Pakistan, particularly where pacers can often toil for little reward, I don't think he's going to be a massive blow to the side. I think Kimar Roach and Jaden Seals and Anderson and Phillip as well can hold up their end with the ball. So I don't think it's a massive concern. I think it's fair enough. West Indies have given him the permission to play. I think if you have a rigid line where it's like, no, you can't play in anything, then that's when players sort of turn down contracts and go against the board. So we've seen some flexibility there. And I don't think it's be a massive blow. Hopefully he can regain his sort of form and temperament for that home series against Australia, where he'll be more effective. And Shamar Joseph as well, hopefully he can recover from his injuries. We saw in the England series, he picked up an injury. He's kind of been in and out of being injured. So it's a shame to see him miss this series. But hopefully, I don't think he got an IPL deal, did he? So he might play for... Did he get an IPL deal? No, I don't know. Don't think he did.
I don't remember it, no.
No,
he might get a PSL one.
He might get a PSL deal as well. That's the thing. I think that's a big thing because the draft is in January for the PSL, and that will affect what players we see in the regional season and making themselves available for red ball cricket and stuff. So, yeah, hopefully Shamar Joseph gets time to rehabilitate, rest, recover, and we see him back stronger in the home summer. So it's not long, Mash. It's pretty much 3 weeks until that first test starts. We've had a lot of test cricket over the past 12 months, most of it down bad. So hopefully, they can give Coley a good grandstand finish in Pakistan. However, as we rightly said, Mash, at the top of the show, all evidence would point to it being 2-0 to Pakistan. And that's not us being negative. That's just a fact. Pakistan are a better side. They're at home. They've got their spin conditions, which they brought back. West Indies are down bad in test cricket. All the ingredients are there for a 2-0. However, as we saw against Australia, where West Indies is never a dull day, we might be talking about the miracle at Multan in a month's time. So we look forward to that. And firstly, happy holidays, happy Christmas to everyone celebrating it tomorrow. Shout out anyone who works on the frontline services. If you haven't got the day off, emergency service and whatnot, shout out yourselves. Shout out everyone spending time with family, enjoying that food. Have a good holiday. We'll be back, Mash. In the coming days with the
We got to do the Caribbean Cricket Podcast Award show. So we haven't finished
what the categories. Do you remember off the top of your head?
So we've still got obviously all the usual ones: ODI Player of the Year, Test Player of the Year, Men's and Women's. So all of those ones will happen, people, for all the formats, Men's and Women's Players of the Year. But the ones that we want everybody's nominations on. So we want, everyone listening to this, whenever you're listening to this, send in your nominations. You can do it in the comments below for the following 4 categories. The down bad moment of the year. And so far, just to give you some examples of some of the down bad nominations that we've had so far. No Super 50 final. West Indies losing 3-0. Yeah, I can see Santokie already wet himself.
I forgot, I actually forgot about this.
Santokie, it's only when you put it out to the supporters that you get reminded of things that have taken place. Other nominations I've had.
Champion,
Other nominations: West Indies losing 3-0 at home to Bangladesh in T20s. Another example: Roston Chase saving us in the T20 World Cup versus Papua New Guinea. So we've had a few, and then obviously we also need people. The catfish nominations for catfish of the year. Santokie, some of the things I've had sent in already about catfish. So some of the nominations I've had so far for catfish of the year has been the West Indies Test team after winning in the Gabba, then being rubbish for the rest of the year. But I've also had someone sent in a nomination saying Darren Sammy's the catfish of the year for for gassing everyone up to believe we could win the World Cup. The thing is, I just want everyone to know these aren't things that me and Santokie have nominated. You know, this is what people are sending in to us. We'll just decide from the list that people send to us. So,
I'll phone my nomination for Catfishers of the Year would be because it was this year, isn't it? Keon Otley opening for West Indies in Australia.
You know what? So long ago, I don't even remember that. You know, Keon Otley. Let me write that one down. In Australia. Also send us in, people, your CCP moment of the year. So anything that's happened on any of our shows that whether it's somebody who's rung in or whatever it might be, but CCP moment of the year. And then the last one that also we want nominees for is the West Indies Star of the Year. And we've asked for a men's nomination and a women's nomination. Obviously, it looks like Hayley will probably win the women's one. But the men's one, quite a few people have this is quite interesting, Santokie. I've had loads of people say Jaden Seals. Some have said Casey Carty. But then, just before we press record on this, someone sent one in saying, what about Shafane Rutherford? And I thought, that's a good shout, to be fair. So that one might not be as straightforward as people think. So send in your nominations, people, for Down Bad Moment of the Year, Catfish of the Year, CCP Hall of Fame Moment of the Year, and then the West Indies Star of the Year, both men's and women's teams. And then Santokie and I will record that episode, possibly live, possibly not, but we'll do it certainly before the end of the year. So look out for that one to drop. Last words to you, Santokie.
As always, follow us Instagram, TikTok, X, Discord. Support us on Patreon if you can, patreon.com/CaribCricket, Facebook, Blue Sky. We're on all social media platforms. So like, follow, share, subscribe. Let's keep it going. 2025, we've got some big plans, some big ideas for content coming. So keep an eye out for that. And as I said as well, have a good Christmas, holidays, whatever you're doing, wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you very soon for our end of year awards. Take care, everyone.
West Indies Cricket, Caribbean Cricket Podcast. West Indies Cricket, Caribbean Cricket Podcast.